We do roll on. It is Three Dog Thursday. However you found us, remember, subscribe away on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify for the audio. And right now, if you found us on video, we're on YouTube and through a social media link, however you found us. I'm merely TJ. I've got a great guest to help decipher all of what's going on with this baseball labor fight, the deal that is now in place. It looks like we're going to have baseball. Let's say hello and welcome in from NBCSports.com. I have loved the writings and the insight of Craig Calcaterra, and he is right here with me right now on Three Dog Thursday. Good to be with you, sir. Thank you for making time. Thank you for being willing to do the video thing.
Well, thank you for having me. Absolutely.
Okay, so first things first, what in the name of Abner Doubleday took 2 months to get us to this point? I've been reading you, but I want you to articulate here.
It's really simple. The owners didn't want to negotiate what they were supposed to negotiate. The moment the owners actually made an offer that conformed with the rules for the negotiation, that was June 17th. That was the first time they made an offer that actually conformed with the March agreement that they made with the players. They had a deal 5 days later, and they could start planning for the season. For the 3 months in between those times, the owners were trying to negotiate something completely different that was completely out of it. It's like if you and I got together and we said, hey, we're going to go out for dinner next week. We could do Italian or we could do barbecue. And you spent the next 20 minutes talking about Chinese. No. We already established Italian or barbecue. The minute you started picking Italian or barbecue places, hey, we had a deal. We figured it out. That's what that was all about.
It sounds like you have a preview into my house. And I know you have teenage kids, and I have twin daughters. And yeah, we said Italian. I should mention, back up here that Craig also has a legal background and an understanding of the labor fight. I'm operating off of a very convoluted, complicated premise for the audience, my tongue firmly in my cheek here from a legal standpoint. Rule of thumb, the baseball players have always won. This is very hard to understand. They have always won in court against the owners. Not some of the time, not most of the time. They have always won. And I know one of the things that you've been writing about on NBCSports.com is the pending grievance that would be filed. And I don't have any reason to doubt that the players will end up getting more than just the prorated 50, 60, 70 games, whatever it's going to ultimately be, 60, 65 games for the regular season. I don't have any doubt right now that they're going to get more money than that down the road, because in this agreement, right, Craig, there is no, hey, you will not sue, cease fire, do not file a grievance, right?
Right. That's certainly the case. During that 3 months when they weren't really meeting up, there was a pretty good argument to be made that the owners were arguing in bad faith. And I use that as a legal term. It's too boring to get into in the details. It doesn't just mean that they're being ornery or they're being difficult. There's a legal thing called they're arguing in bad faith. They're arguing about the wrong things. There's a reason to believe that the players have a good case against that. I think the owners even knew that they were arguing in bad faith, because towards the end there, they asked the players, hey, will you waive the right? Please give up any chance of a grievance against us. And the players said no. They ended up coming not to a deal. The owners are just imposing the season. And the players still do have a right to file a grievance with a neutral arbitrator. Will they? I don't know. There's a lot of arguments back and forth as to whether they should or whether they will. I don't think it's a drop dead given that they would win it either. But they have a pretty good chance if they do. All of this is just a preview of what's going to happen, a little over a year from now when the two sides start to negotiate the next collective bargaining agreement. So, just bad faith, ugliness for 3 months. Now that's all finally settled for the time being.
And again, they agreed in March to prorated salary for whatever number of games were played. And it was the owners after that agreement in writing that wanted to change it. And that's what you've been referring to with the whole good faith, bad faith negotiations. I had somebody else very profound explain this to me 25 years ago in terms of contract law. Rule number one of contract law: what does the contract say? What was agreed to? Because that's what an arbiter or a judge, I didn't have to go to law school to understand that. That's what an arbiter or a judge is going to look at, right? First of all, what does the contract say, right?
Right. And a lot of what's happened is the people that have been arguing about it haven't seen the contract.
Even better.
Seen the language to it. A lot of people said, well, the players said that if there were no fans in the stands, they would renegotiate salary. No, the deal never said that. There are a lot of people on the ownership side who believe that or think that should be true. And I'd say about 75% of the people that you read in the baseball media have their sources with ownership, right? They're being told some things that aren't exactly true, that make owners look better. That's why it was being widely misreported that the players had some right or had some duty to renegotiate salary. They didn't. It was a settled term.
All right, there you go. That's the voice of Craig Calcaterra. If you're only hearing us on the Three Dog Thursday podcast, through Apple Podcasts, through Spotify, through Google Podcasts, a social media link, if you found us, find the video as well on YouTube, because we're talking about the Major League Baseball labor fight right now, and I'm referring to some of Craig's work. You get to see him, see what he looks like. We're having a fantastic time discussing this for a few more minutes on the podcast, whether it's audio or video. And again, subscribe to the YouTube page, wherever you found the video, on social media. Subscribe away, come find the show. So you wrote on NBCSports.com for earlier here about, okay, how is the 2020 season going to unfold? For those of us on video, you're seeing Craig's article right here on how it's going to unfold with the schedule. So let's talk a little bit about the schedule. You're going to play essentially your division home and away for 40 of the games, we believe, and then you're going to play interleague games in the different regions. The East will play the East, the Central will play the Central, the West will play the West. It's right there as you have laid it out. Are you fine with this? Is something better than nothing? Could they have done better? What do you think, Craig?
It's not ideal. I don't think there's any situation that would be ideal if you're only going to play 60 games, and if you're going to try to limit travel, and if you're going to try to have all these other sort of procedures about rosters and things like that, which we'll probably talk about a little bit more of here. There's going to be unfairness involved. The Central, for example, is going to be a pretty easy place to play. There are a lot of really bad teams in both Central divisions. I don't have the exact numbers, but I think someone said that the Twins, who obviously won the AL Central last year, and the Cardinals will play, a very vanishing small number of games against teams who were over 500 last year, who are expected to do well. It's in the East, on the other hand, there's going to be a bunch of monsters. There's also this issue with travel. In the East, the teams that are in the Northeast, like the Yankees, the Phillies, the Mets, the Red Sox, the Orioles, the Nationals, they're not going to have to travel far. I think they only have to travel like once more than like 250 miles or something. Whereas if you're in the West, you have to go across 2 or 3 different time zones,
Right.
and you'll be traveling over. I mean, Seattle and Texas are in the same division, right? They're going to be traveling and playing each other. Houston's even farther. They're going to be playing them. That's something that's never new, though, to the AL West or the NL West. So, is that a big deal? I'm not sure. The ultimate question is whether 60 games, no matter who you're playing, is a fair test of team quality. A lot of people have a lot of opinions about that. I tend to think it's a fairer test than a lot of folks say. If you look back over the last 25 years of having 3 divisions in each league and a wild card, something like 70% of the time through game 60, 70% of the playoff teams are set almost every year. In the last 5 years, we haven't had one season where more than 3 of the 10 ultimate playoff teams weren't in playoff position after 60 games. We won't have some surprise teams like the Nationals surge late.
Last year.
Just last year. That's the big example. But that's actually kind of the exception to the rule. The 2002 A's, who came on really late, people talk about them. Most of the time after 60 games, you have a pretty good idea of who's going to be good. And if you don't believe it numerically, just fall back on the old adage. What do people say every year in March, April, early May, when some teams are doing good, some teams are underperforming? People have always said this in baseball. Wait until Memorial Day. We'll see how things are doing Memorial Day. That's pretty much when you know who's good and who's bad. Memorial Day last year, game 57-58.
And again, that's because 2 months have settled in, pitching rotations have settled in. Have you developed young players or not at the beginning of the season? You can't judge everything, but it is a good barometer. I'm still in the camp that we should have gotten at least 81 games out of this and should have been playing all of June, shoulda, coulda, woulda, all of July, all of August, and all of September. Even if you didn't have enhanced more teams in the playoffs, that's just my belief on that. Couple of more moments. Craig Calcaterra with me here from NBCSports.com. Great baseball insider, legal analyst as well for the whole labor fight all across the board. Are you fine? I was asking one of our guests before you came on, are you fine with this idea of put the runner on second to start the extra inning, top and bottom of the extra innings? In your purest form, you got it. We all got to swallow and accept. Are you fine with that?
Theoretically, I hate it, right? And when this rule first came up in the minor leagues a couple of years ago, I was just appalled. It just seems like, it's like playing in the backyard, ghost runner on second or something. Who does that with professional baseball? I will admit, though, I live in a AAA town. I live in Columbus, Ohio. We have the Columbus Clippers, who are the Indians' top farm team here. I go to a lot of Clippers games. Last couple of years, I've gone to a couple of games, at least, that went extra innings, and they started it with that. Is it ideal? No. It's a little anticlimactic. It's kind of like how NFL sudden death overtime used to be when someone wins the coin toss, goes down, kicks a field goal with the other team never getting possession. Oh, great. That was fun. It's very, very deflating. It's not the end of the world, though. It could be a little fun, too, if someone can't get a bunt down. I get why they're doing it, though. They don't want to have, 15, 16, 17 inning games going on. The rosters are already going to be stretched because of health, guys sitting out, pitchers' arms, things like that. I understand it. I don't like it, but at the same time, it's not the end of the world. There are way worse things going on in the year 2020 than a runner at second base in the 10th inning.
We should point out that apparently they've rediscovered the Loch Ness Monster over in the UK as we tape Three Dog Thursday. Why not? It's 2020. As somebody put on social media, and I thought it was tremendous. Who had the Loch Ness Monster on the 2020 bingo card? I don't think a lot of people, but it's out there.
It probably wasn't even the biggest long shot at this point.
It's
surprising. We can deal a little bit.
A couple of more on the rule changes for Craig Calcaterra here. Before we get out of here, it's Three Dog Thursday. We're on the video on YouTube. Again, whether you found us through a social media link or the audio, find the video as well. Are you fine with DH, both American League, National League, and is it maybe a precursor that we're permanently going to see the DH in both leagues? What are you hearing? What do you think?
Well, as far as my opinion, I'm totally fine with it. I grew up as a National League fan, and so on some weird level, I like to see pitchers hit, but it's also terrible. Pitchers can't hit. They're never going to hit. Any argument you hear about maybe pitchers should hit, oh, it's exciting, it's just completely obliterated in my view anyway. Look, I know this is a religious issue with some people, but it's completely obliterated in my view with the fact that even the best pitchers hitting, Zach Greinke, the best hitting pitcher in baseball right now, would never make a roster as a hitter. He's that bad. He couldn't even hold his own in the minor leagues as a hitter. We're excited when Bartolo Colon hits a home run. He did it once in 22 years. Bartolo Colon has more families than he has career home runs. I do not need to see pitchers batting. That being said, yeah, it's going to be weird. I also think that we're going to see this permanently. Right now on the books for 2021, we're going to go back to the DH not existing in the National League. I have this feeling they're going to make a side agreement before next season that we will have the DH universal. Players have wanted it for years because the roster spot's more valuable for a DH than it is for a relief pitcher or something like that. Teams like it too because they know that pitchers can't hit. Gives some flexibility and things like that. I think the last hitting pitcher in a game that counted was Garrett Cole in Game 7 of the 2019 World Series. He struck out on 3 pitches.
Yeah, well, by and large, they are completely ineffective. Not unlike this show at times, completely ineffective. Before we get out of here, a couple more. All right, so the 3-batter rule, I'm highlighting this for the audience on video. You wrote this here. People need to be aware this is going to go as planned, that now if you come in as a pitcher, it's not just going to be a one-off to come in to pitch to one guy and that's it. You got to have the 3 batters that you face, right?
Yep. That was the rule they've been talking about for a couple of years. They announced it back in February before all this happened. And it's one of the few things that was new for 2020 that they've decided to keep, even with the weird season. I think Rob Manfred is just in with that one, and teams have started to plan around it. And no one really threw up an objection during negotiations for this shortened season. It's something we're just going to live with now.
And I am all for, hey, let's speed the game along with pitching rules and pitching change rules and mound visits. They tried to do this a couple of years ago with the mound visits and the amount of time between batters, because that's where things get really bogged down. The game doesn't have to take 3.5 hours because of delays. If it's I see you nodding. If it's taking 3.5 hours because it's competitive and it's fun and it's involved and there's lots of scoring, that's one thing. But 3.5 hours in a 1-0 or 2-1 game because of pitching changes, delays, mound visits, We got to do better than that. All right, so one more. We were talking earlier. This is an underdog podcast, and you prefaced by saying, hey, I'm not big into the lines and the spreads, but you did put this out there on NBCSports.com, the odds to win the World Series, the futures odds right now to win the World Series. So I have them up on the screen. We were saying with one of our analysts, Brian Edwards, who's not a big baseball guy either, that most everybody would favor those teams right there, the Dodgers and the Yankees. Where I am interested is in here, the defending champion Nationals at 18-1 on these odds, or my Tampa Bay Rays. You see the hat right over me there that I have allegiance to them in the Tampa Bay area. Very interesting at 18-1 there. A 96-win team a year ago, maybe very well built for the short 60-game.
Yeah, I think the Rays are, I mean, again, prefacing this with I'm not a gambler, and I realize gambling are not about favoring the best team necessarily. It's about the action, but I think the Rays are being undersold there. They're going to be a beast this year no matter what. And the Nationals, they lost some big hitters in Rendon.
Right.
Didn't really replace them. I get them falling down a little bit. But, yeah, I mean, I think these odds sort of reflect what we were talking about, right? It's, 60 games is weird, but these are generally who we would have thought would be good in a 162-game season.
Do you see one that I'm highlighting right there? I have no allegiance to them. I'm not in the West Coast, but if I was looking at a futures underdog at 33-1 with Mike Trout, short season, Anaheim, LA Angels of Anaheim, I might be interested in that one for 33-1, just for whatever it's worth.
A bit of a curveball on that one,
Please.
though. Mike Trout's wife is due to have a baby in August. And they don't know how the whole maternity paternity leave thing is going to work with the COVID-19 restrictions.
Wow.
Because you're technically vulnerable. They might get longer paternity leave. If you're Mike Trout, you'd rather be with your wife and kid. He might be missing more time than you think. So I don't know about the Angels. Hard to
look
say.
At you. Look at you. You're pulling good advice here for me for futures, Bubby, because again, that's a bet to win the World Series right now. Not just make the playoffs, not just make the World Series, but just go and do the whole thing. Just interesting. Food for thought. Again, we plug away once more. Go to NBCSports.com, their Hardball Talk blog. That's where Craig Calcaterra does a fantastic job with updating all of the baseball. Plug away on where else we can find you, read you, social media, please, sir, for the audience. In particular, if they're not seeing us, plug away if they're only hearing us.
Sure, yeah. I'm on Twitter. That's where I spend every moment of my day, and anything that I write for NBC Sports, I'll be plugging there as well, at Craig Calcaterra. I also write about non-baseball things at craigcalcaterra.com, but you don't care about that stuff. This is sports.
Yes. Okay, so check it all out there, including NBCSports.com. Craig, it was a treat. Thank you for hopping on Three Dog Thursday to talk baseball. Let's hope we get the regular season going. Let's hope that we get to a postseason. We're hopeful on all of that. Thank you for the time here.
Thank you very much, TJ.